key thing that we see around that is people that gather a lot of views on these short form video platforms like TikTok and Reels, where things can potentially go, in air quotes, viral quicker. But if that doesn't relate to the action that you want people to take with your business, then chances are it's not going to actually mean much as a business strategy, right? So you want to be making sure that you're getting the right audience to watch your videos, and you want to be sure that they're moving towards taking the right sort of action with your business.
Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Ben Amos. If you don't know who Ben is, you got to know Ben. He is the founder of Engage Video Marketing, a business that helps video producers become video strategists. He's host of the Engage Video Marketing podcast. His course is the Video Strategist Masterclass, and the working title of his forthcoming new book, soon to be released, is Engage, the Proven Video Marketing Strategy to Reach More of the Right People and Boost Your Sales. Ben, welcome back to the show. How you doing today?
G'day, Mike. I'm doing really well. Looking forward to it. I'm
super excited that you're here today, Ben. Today, Ben and I are going to explore how to optimize your videos to reach more of the right people. Now, before we get into that, I just want to ask this question, Ben. Why do videos tend to underperform? Because a lot of people create videos that just don't seem to move the needle for their business.
Yeah, Mike, it's a really good question to kick us off here today. And I believe that the biggest failure for most businesses who are doing some sort of video marketing is that they're just doing video for video's sake. They're just looking at video as another tactic to throw into their marketing strategy, or someone has said that they need to be doing more video, so they're just making video and putting it out there. But what's lacking from that is that they're not really thinking strategically about the video content that they're creating. And it's kind of like jumping in a car, right, without knowing where you're going. So yes, you might drive somewhere and you might get somewhere successful, but chances are you'll probably get lost along the way. You'll probably turn down a few streets that you didn't mean to, and you'll potentially run out of gas, right? So, when you think about video marketing as just a tactic, as video for video's sake, then I think that's where most businesses tend to stumble and potentially fall over.
I can personally relate to this in a pretty dramatic way, because when we were getting ready to promote Social Media Marketing World back in 2023, I decided that I was going to build a little home studio and I was going to do unscripted direct-to-camera video. And my hypothesis in my brain was that people just want to hear what I think. And what happened was, basically, I would get home from church on a Sunday and be inspired to say some random thing about something that happened to me over the weekend. I'd hit record and I would talk for 7 to 10 minutes, and I would sow a kind of a random story in the middle of it about the conference. And what ended up happening was the very first video was good, probably because I'd been noodling for a long time on what I was going to say. But all the other videos that I did, and I went on to do this for months, bombed. And they bombed in a pretty dramatic way because I didn't have a strategy beyond what I just told you. I just recorded because I felt like I needed to show up on camera, and I hypothesized that my followers across YouTube and Instagram and X/Twitter and Facebook would be interested in hearing what I had to say. And they were, to a point, but it didn't work. So I'm here to tell everyone, you're not alone if you have done and or are doing what I do, Ben. I would imagine this happens quite a bit.
Yeah, and you're absolutely not alone. A few years ago, I would have been saying in a podcast interview like this that the biggest problem with most businesses and video marketing is just getting started. Just start putting some videos out there and integrating video into your marketing strategy. But I don't think that's the case anymore. I think many businesses are now using video or experimenting with video. But just as you've described there, Mike, is that without a strategy, they're potentially just, treading water or like that duck on the pond with their legs just like flapping about crazily, but not getting anywhere. Right. And that's one of the biggest problems I see. And there was some data from Content Marketing Institute last year, a survey where they surveyed a bunch of marketers, I think about 400 marketers, mostly in North America. And of those marketers, when one of the questions was asking, what do they think is they need in order to be more effective or more successful with their video marketing. And 60% of those surveyed said that they need a video strategy. So people are recognizing that that's something lacking, right? And it's a little bit about what we'll talk about here today, but certainly it's a bigger thing than just optimization, which we'll talk about here today.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because before I ask my next question, I do want you to distinguish about what optimization means, because we talked about in the opening about this is about optimizing our videos, and some people might have a preconceived notion of what that means. So why don't you introduce what optimizing the videos mean, and then I'll get into my next question about where to start.
Yeah, it's a good clarifying question because, when people hear the word optimization, typically they automatically think about the idea of search engine optimization or video optimization, particularly on platforms like YouTube, where it's about, more optimizing for the algorithm, right? And for doing things in order to get the algorithm to pay more attention to your videos. But that's changed, right? Because optimization today, I believe, is much more encompassing than that. And to summarize it, I think that it's about everything that's done both in your video and around your video when it's published to ensure that the right people actually see it. So you can publish a video on any platform and it'll be there available. It'll be out there in the world. But because of things like algorithms, because of things moving fast, because of news, being something that people scroll through really quickly, chances are they might not even see, your ideal audience might not even see the video. And if they see it, they might not click on it. And if they don't click on it, then they might not watch the first few seconds. And if they don't watch the first few seconds, then they won't be hopefully grabbed enough to continue watching the video to get to the point of the video in the first place, right? So optimization is about doing things to ensure that you get the right people to actually watch your videos.
Yeah, and I would imagine it transcends just getting them to the start of the video. It also involves getting them through the video. Is that fair to say?
100%, right? Because chances are the first few seconds of your video or the first little bit of your video is not going to contain all the information that you want to communicate in order to drive the action that you want from the video. So you do need to think about things that you can also do in your video to optimize for retention, for longer view durations as well. So, and we'll talk about that in a lot more detail today.
Okay, so we are optimizing videos specifically for humans, not necessarily for algorithms, maybe a little bit for algorithms, but mostly for humans is what I'm hearing you say. So when it comes to starting this optimization process that we're going to be talking about today, what exactly do we need to be thinking about first?
Yeah, I'll just clarify on that. The benefit of optimizing for audiences, right, for humans, not for algorithms, is that the fact is that all of the algorithms these days are actually set up and they've been, changed over the years in order to optimize for humans as well. So every algorithm wants to deliver the best viewing experience and the best results for videos to the humans who are using their platform. So all the algorithms are kind of set up in a way that skews towards the human anyway. So if you can optimize for the humans, then you're automatically doing the right things as far as the algorithms are concerned anyway. And the first place to start, in response to your question there, Mike, is attention. Okay, so what I mean by that is if you can't capture the attention of your ideal audience, then you're kind of failing out of the gate. You need to grab the attention right at the start. And there's a few strategies that we can talk about in order to grab attention there. But if you don't have attention, then the rest of the video doesn't matter.
Real quick, before we get into attention, because there was a couple things we talked about here about like goals and stuff like that we might want to be thinking about first. So can we back up the train before we get into your attention stage and just like help us, like we know we want to optimize for humans, but like, are there some things that we need to be thinking about before we actually get to that attention step?
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying, Mike. So really what you do need to do before you start making decisions about what you're going to do around optimization with any video content, you really need to understand, what's behind your video strategy in the first place. And that starts by really knowing who your audience is, knowing who you're trying to reach with your content. If you don't know that, then chances are you're not going to create the content that's going to reach them in the first place. It's also worthwhile to kind of consider what platform are you going to be publishing on. So where are these videos going to end up? Because that decision will determine how you optimize for the viewers on those platforms as well. And then you also need to really understand what it is that you're trying to achieve from that video as well. So, what is the goal? What are you actually wanting this video to do for your business, right? So if you have that background of understanding from a business context about why you're doing this in the first place, then you can use that to inform the things that you're going to do in and around your video in order to optimize that video. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just to dig a little deeper on goals and audience. A lot of us just want views, but talk about why views alone, by humans is not acceptable, right? We don't want just anybody to view these videos, right? Because you could create a video today that could get a lot of views, but it's not going to help your business necessarily, right?
Yeah, definitely. And, a key thing that we see around that is people that gather a lot of views on these short form video platforms like TikTok and Reels, where things can potentially go, in air quotes, viral quicker. But if that doesn't relate to the action that you want people to take with your business, then chances are it's not going to actually mean much as a business strategy, right? So you want to be making sure that you're getting the right audience to watch your videos, and you want to be sure that they're moving towards taking the right sort of action with your business. So when we establish goals for a video strategy, we need to be thinking about the different stages of the customer journey and where people are in that journey, and then moving people towards a conversion or some sort of action with your business that's actually going to be meaningful to your business, right? So again, without going deeper into that, I think that if we're thinking strategically about our video content, then we need to be thinking about how's this going to drive tangible business results over the longer term for a business.
Yeah, and I'm going to be presenting at an event called Creator Expo, and I don't do this very often, but I'm going to be presenting to a lot of creators, and specifically about content creation. And one of the big fallacies that I want to talk about is the fact that a big audience equals business opportunity, because it's just not true. You know what I mean? Like, you could have a massive amount of people watching your videos who are the wrong people, right? And plenty of people that have written articles or created videos about something that was a hot topic of the moment, and they got optimization in the algorithms or the search or whatever, and they felt like they have this big audience, but they didn't really think strategically about the fact that those people are probably never going to be the buyers of their products and services, right? So it's oftentimes better for you to have a smaller, more targeted audience watch your content that is actually the kind of audience who is in the market for what it is you're selling, rather than a larger audience. And that's the fallacy a lot of people have, is they think big numbers equal big financial opportunities. Would you agree with that in general?
Yeah, 100%. And also when you think of your video strategy as just, I guess, more top of funnel video marketing or video content marketing, then you're also, I think, restricting your viewing of what's possible here. One of the videos, for example, that has returned the greatest in return on investment, brought the most money into my business, my agency business I'm talking about here, is a video that was created and watched and intended to be watched by just one person, right? So the view count of that video is 1. Right, wow. Because it was a sales video, and it went alongside a proposal of over $100,000 for this contract, right? But the video was what sold it for me. They said to me, it was the video that you included with your tender submission, which actually got it across the line with the decision makers and the stakeholders here in the organization. So that was the view count of that was 1, or maybe more than that, because a few people probably watched it within that organization, right? But that returned, over $100,000 worth of work for us. So that's just an example of how to reframe your thinking around the view count mattering when it comes to driving business results.
I love it. Okay. So we've talked about kind of the foundational work that we've talked about, which is, remember, we're targeting audiences, not necessarily algorithms. And those audiences should be the ideal people that you're trying to reach. You got to have some sort of a goal. And you have to decide which platforms you're going to be on. And just quickly on the goal side of things, should they be view count goals, or should they be some other kind of goal? What's your thoughts on that?
Look, I think it's when you talk about view counts, you're talking more about the measurement, right? More about the metrics that you're going to pay attention to know whether you're successful. I think about the goals more about, what do you actually want? What action do you want people to drive in your business? And to break goals down simply, you can think about kind of top of funnel, like awareness, like just creating more awareness of your brand or your business. And that's more of that content marketing approach. You get into the middle of the funnel, and it's more around, building relationships or establishing trust or expertise. So your goal there is around, higher levels of engagement. And then when you get down into the bottom of the funnel, you're talking about, actual conversion goals like click-throughs, driving sales, and that sort of thing. And I don't know if you remember the number of my podcast on this show in 2019, we went a lot deeper into exactly that in that podcast episode.
I do not remember that, but I'm going to look that up so I can tell everybody where they can learn more about that. All right. So you've got a bunch of steps that we're going to go into right now, and you've already alluded to the first step, which is attention. So why don't you explain what that is again, and let's dive in a little bit into what the elements of it are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's start with attention, right? Because as I mentioned before, if you don't capture the attention of the right audience, critical is the right audience, then you've kind of lost right out of the gate, right? So when it comes to attention, really what we're talking about is how you can, just grab those eyeballs of that person as they're scrolling past, or they're seeing a page of results of videos on YouTube or whatever it may be, or they open an email and there's a video, embedded at the top, or they're on your website and there's a video sitting there that they could scroll past, right? So the strategies I'm going to talk about here are relevant to video wherever it sits within your marketing strategy. We're not just talking YouTube, for example, right? But it's absolutely relevant to YouTube and any particular
By the way,
platform.
before you get into it, I have the number. So if everybody goes to socialmediaexaminer.com/374, or you scroll back a lot in your podcast app to episode 374, it's called Video Marketing Strategy, the Power of Video During the Customer Journey. And that's where Ben goes into deep on a lot of the stuff that we were alluding to early. So keep going, Ben, where you were going with this audio, action side of things.
Yeah. So when we're talking about attention here, we're talking about the things that you do both in and around your video, as I mentioned before, in order to capture that attention. And there's 4 things that I tend to focus on, right? And those 4 things are the audio attention, or capturing attention through audio, capturing it through the visuals, capturing it through textual elements, and capturing it through something called the promise. Now we'll get to that in a moment. Let's break down each one of these things, right? So we'll talk about audio first. Now, it's interesting that when you think about audio and video, obviously it's a big part of video, right? Video and audio. But also many of the platforms that you may end up distributing your content on tend to be sound off platforms first, particularly newsfeed type video platforms. So this is where you might have less impact on audio, but and you'll be thinking more about some of the other ones. So I just want to reference that first. That's why you need to really know what platform you're publishing this video on in order to decide how to best optimize. But audio is so powerful with video, right? So, and it's that kind of combo between the visuals and the audio that really makes video unique and powerful. So when we're thinking about grabbing attention with the audio, you can do that through the words that you say, obviously, in the opening frames, the opening seconds. So the very first words that come out of your mouth, if it's a talking head type video, need to be, the goal for those words is purely to grab attention of that ideal audience. I kind of think of the attention element here a bit like a wolf whistle in a crowded street, right? So, that kind of, I can't do it, but put these 2 fingers in your mouth.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But that wolf whistle just captures it. It's all of a sudden everyone kind of stops and like, what was that? Right? And obviously that's capturing the attention of a crowd. But what you want to do is think more like a dog whistle, right? So a dog whistle, you blow that in a crowded street and only the dogs will turn and look at you, So when we're thinking about attention, we need to think about how we can create that dog whistle for our ideal audience. Okay. So words, obviously very important. Also think about sounds in the attention section here, right? And I'll just rewind a little bit here, because often many people know what we're talking about here is the hook. So the hook is like the first opening seconds of the video, right? But what we're talking about in the hook is grabbing attention. So the sound element here, we can use sound effects. Sound effects are very powerful as well. So, you can imagine starting a video and you're hearing like a cracking sound effect or an explosive sound effect. Or a great example of this is we produce a bunch of video content for a natural insect repellent brand in my agency, right? So that insect repellent brand obviously
has a spray sound probably, right? Does it?
Well,
no,
we have played with the spray sound, but the uniqueness of this insect repellent brand is that they're actually a natural oil infused sticker, like a patch. They're not a spray, right? So it's like a little sticker that you put on, and then it stops the mosquitoes from hassling.
So do you have the buzz of is that where you're going with that?
That's exactly where we're going. Yeah. So that buzz, that mosquito buzz sound is very powerful as a hook, and it's a pain-based hook, right? So people hear that, and you hear that in the opening seconds of the video, and you kind of like your back gets all tingly, and you're like, oh, I hate that sound. But it captures your attention, right? Particularly the attention of someone that is worried about being bitten by mosquitoes, right? Which is our audience for this. So sound is very powerful. Think about being creative with sound. Trending audios as well on certain platforms are going to be a great hook, right? In that opening seconds. And also just thinking about how you can do something unexpected. And this is relevant to a few of the different strategies we'll talk about in the hook here, but the unexpected thing kind of gets people to, it's like a pattern interrupt, it breaks them out of their kind of sit back and scroll mentality, and they'll pay more attention. Okay. You can also think about music as well when talking about sound. That can be a powerful attention grabber as well. So that's the audio section. Do we want to go deeper into that, or should we move on to the next?
Well, I mean, I'm just curious because I understand music. Like we use music obviously in the opening and transitions. But I have heard, I'm just thinking of podcasting, some podcasters that are more sophisticated use music underneath their ads, right? Or they use music to transition in between scenes. And I've even seen a lot of YouTubers have special sound effects pop up on the screen at certain kind of moments. And I would imagine those sound effects are, like you said, a pattern interrupt, right? And they are very effective. And where do people even find these sound effects? I mean, is there libraries? I mean, does Adobe, my guess is Adobe must have a sound library where you can get all this stuff. I don't even know.
Yeah. I mean, Adobe's great. There's royalty-free sound effects libraries. There's, a bunch of different tools that you can use. I mean, a great tool, which I'll throw out here, is a tool called myinstants.com.
MyInstants?
INSTANTS, as in like instantly.
Oh, okay.
My Instance. I don't know. It's a weird word. But anyway, they call it the largest instant sound button library. So it's a really simple website. Whole bunch of the kind of trending sounds that YouTubers might use. That's kind of like boom, boom sounds, or these kind of little trending. These trending audios that you hear, right? This kind of magical twinkly sounds or the angels coming down from the heaven kind of sound. And it's just a whole library of searchable sounds that you can just download and use. It's a pretty cool little site to grab some trending audios. And sorry, when I say trending audios, I more mean trending sound effects, not your full trending audios that you might use in Reels, right? So those sorts of things, because they're kind of like audio memes, right? They're kind of like cultural memes that people are like, oh, that's that sound, and that you're using it in your context, and it hooks people, right? It grabs the attention. Obviously, when that's relevant to your audience. Now, without getting distracted.
The only reason I love talking about audio is because we don't talk about that very much on the show when it comes to video. So cool. Are we just doing this in the beginning of the video, or are we kind of strategically placing this throughout the entire video, these audio special effects?
Yeah, we're talking about attention right now, and audio is very powerful in attention, grabbing the attention. But in the next stage, we're going to talk about, how to keep people watching as well. So we will talk a little bit about
right this. Now we're talking about using this in the early stages of your video right now.
To hook attention, to wolf whistle, to grab people out of their news feeds and into your video, right?
Perfect. Keep going.
Awesome. So audio, one great tactic to use, but like we mentioned before, sometimes sound off platforms, you can't rely on audio alone. And obviously, sometimes you can use audio as well as the next thing, which is the visuals, right? So when we're talking visuals here, I'm talking about how you use those, whatever you show in the opening frames, the very first seconds of your video. And in fact, I want you to recognize here that the very first frame is actually very important, particularly on certain platforms. So, you know, you talk about first frame retention as being a very important metric to look at, particularly for like direct response ads and things like that. So really, when I'm talking about the opening seconds, I want you to actually consider all the way back to the first frame as well. Okay. Because people's attention is either won or lost very, very quickly when it comes to videos.
So to be clear, we're talking about, like, I've seen some videos where the first frame is them kind of adjusting themselves and then they start talking. We're talking about cutting straight into something here. Is that really what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah. I mean, even because we're talking one frame of the video, you know, which we're talking, there's 30 frames per second, depending on your frame rate of your video, we're actually talking a very almost imperceptible difference. But if you will see a difference on some platforms where if you edit it really tight at the start, where as soon as the video starts, something is happening right from that first frame. So if it's a talking head video, that first frame might be where your eyes are closed because you're mid blink, or you might be kind of looking up from your teleprompter or whatever. Cut it really tight so that you're starting right in the action. It really makes a difference. So first frame, the opening seconds, some of the things that you can use here for visuals is to include human faces. So people engage with people. So when you're thinking about using human faces, you know, real people in your opening frames, also consider the proximity of that face. So how big it is in the frame. So it's often less engaging for that person to be much further back in the frame than being right up close, right? And sometimes uncomfortably close can be a very powerful attention grabber as well. Also, if a human face is expressing emotions as well, emotions very powerful. So imagine the first frame or the first seconds of that video is a human face, but it's screwed up in pain or disgust or something like that. That's going to grab your attention. You're going to be like, what is going on here? I want to know what's happening. So it could be, you know, any emotions can be powerful here as well. So human faces is one thing. Another thing to include in the visuals could be the location. So particularly unexpected or, you know, exciting or interesting or, you know, impressive locations can be a really powerful visual hook in the opening seconds here as well. But also potentially situations as well. So, you know, for example, opening a video with someone standing on the edge of a cliff, right? That's a situation. It's also potentially a location, but that's, you know, obviously going to grab attention. It's going to be like, well, what's going on here? Or, you know, Mr. Beast is really good at this example of the opening frames, the opening seconds of his video being these outlandish situations, which, you know, he's manufactured in order to be the goal of the video here. So situations can be powerful as well. Also want you to consider the camera angle. Okay, the camera angle can be really interesting because we're used to seeing eye level, you know, straight camera angles, but unexpected camera angles can be a very powerful visual hook as well. So it might be like an angle underneath where the camera's on the ground and it's under a foot, right? Or it could be a super high camera angle where it's looking down on someone, and that's strange, right? It grabs our attention. So consider the camera angle. Also consider just other visual elements like color and, you know, things that capture the attention, capture the eye, right? You can go deep into this, but really the goal here for the visual hook, grabbing attention through visuals, is to do something that people maybe aren't expecting as they're scrolling their feed or they're clicking play on the video and that sort of thing as well.
This is awesome. Keep going.
Yeah. I also want to just reference here when we're talking about depending, you know, we talked about the platform before. When you're thinking about platforms that don't autoplay the video, then usually you're putting these sorts of visual hooks that we've just talked about. You can put them into the thumbnail as well. So the thumbnail is, you can do I'm sure you have done whole episodes on titles and thumbnails on videos, right? But these sorts of things, particularly the visuals elements, and we'll talk about the textual elements in a moment, these sort of things can work in a still image format as the thumbnail of the video as well.
Love it.
But let's move on to textual hooks, right? So grabbing attention through the textual elements in the opening seconds of your video. And this is where you might not always use this strategy, but this is where you're talking about overlaying text into your video in the opening seconds as well. So it's like, you know, actual editing text on the screen. So here you can use big, bold text or captions to capture the attention. Usually it's both the words in the text, but also the styling of that text that works to grab attention. You can also use subtitles or captions as a way of grabbing attention in the opening seconds. And a good example of this is there's a difference between, kind of your boring straight subtitles, right? Which it will kind of appear in the lower third section of the video and usually just be white or maybe yellow. That's not particularly effective in grabbing attention. But when you use what is often referred to as dynamic captions on videos, which is, captions that move and they change color and they might throw some emojis in there, that sort of thing, which you might see. I think Alex Hormozi, for example, if you're familiar with his video content, it kind of, I guess, maybe not pioneered, but he's pretty popular for that style of video with dynamic captions in there as well. So that can be a very powerful attention grabber as well. Also, I want to recognize here in the textual elements that you can hook attention through the post text or the description, right? So particularly on platforms where the lines of text that you post alongside the video, which appear in like the post text or the description, those things can actually grab attention as well. A good example of this is LinkedIn. So posting video on LinkedIn, usually people will kind of scan over the couple of lines of text that have been posted alongside the video. And sometimes that can do the job of getting someone to stop and watch the video. It might be a bit of a boring, dry video, but if the opening lines of text is like that dog whistle to the ideal professional who you want to see this video, then that can actually do the job of grabbing attention as well.
Love it.
There's a last one I want to get to here, which I think is probably the most important when it comes to grabbing attention, which I refer to as the promise. Now, this is a little bit, it's not as tactical as some of the examples that I've used just before. But when we're talking about the promise, it's like how are you going to grab attention through what this video promises to the viewer? And the promise is often communicated through things like the title of the video, or maybe maybe it's communicated in the thumbnail, or maybe it's communicated in those opening words that you say and those other things that we talked about before. But the promise really is, how will this video make my life better if I watch this? What is this video promising to give me? Is it education? Am I going to learn something that's valuable to me? Am I going to be inspired to take some sort of action? Or am I just going to be entertained? So some examples of the promise being really clear and powerful and highly attention grabbing for their ideal audience, obviously refer back to Mr. Beast, right? So Mr. Beast, mostly we're talking about YouTube when we're talking about Mr. Beast, but an example of one of his recent videos was "Stop this train, win a Lamborghini." Now there's a pretty clear promise in that, right? And that's an entertainment promise, I think, for most people, right? Is they're going to be looking at that and being like, okay, that's an entertaining promise that I'm going to get out of this video. Another good YouTube example is Ryan Trahan, right? And one of his recent videos was, "I tested 1-star drive-throughs." Now, what a great promise that is. It's like, okay, now that is going to be an interesting watch, and if you know Ryan Trahan stuff, then you know that that's going to be entertaining. And another example from, say, Instagram Reels type creator, a guy called Joel James. So his promise that he uses in a lot of his videos, which kind of has built his following as well, is playing a song backwards, then flipping it forwards to see how close I am. Right. So because he usually incorporates exactly those lines, those words into his opening seconds, the promise is really clear. We're going to see if he can play a song backwards, like a musician that can play a song backwards, and then he reverses the audio to see if it's actually a recognizable popular song.
That's really intriguing.
It actually is really intriguing. And that's what kind of hooked me as well, right? So, and he does it. It's really good. So anyway, Joel James, look him up. So you can see those sorts of promises. It's the promise of the video that's hooked me. And now you've got my attention, right? And that's the goal of this first stage of optimization.
Well, first of all, this is absolutely fascinating. We're just talking about this first stage, which is this attention phase. And we're talking about audio. We're talking about visuals. We're talking about textual. And we're talking about the promise. And the promise is probably delivered through audio and text and potentially all the things, right? So that's really intriguing. So what's the next thing after we've figured this attention strategy part of it out?
Well, the next thing is retention. right? So we kind of alluded to it before, is getting people to watch the rest of the video. Because the fact is, Mike, attention without retention is just clickbait, right? So if you just get people to click play on your video and to watch the first few seconds because of this like outlandish hook or this incredible kind of promise, but then once they get into the video a few seconds in, they're like, but this isn't for me. I'm not interested in this. This isn't holding my attention, okay, or retaining my attention, which is what retention means, right? So when we're talking about retention, it's mostly, I think, about relevance, right? So retention mostly comes down to relevance to the person who is now watching your video. You've grabbed their attention. How are you going to make them understand this? Continuing to watch this video is going to be highly relevant to you and what you want to achieve from watching this video. So the way you think about that is it needs to be relevant to the human, first of all. So the video needs to have content and contain material that is relevant to the person's interests, the person's desires, you know, what's going on in their life that they want to improve, that they want to get better at, that they want to learn more about, that they want to take action on. So if you can create video that is for a person to improve their life, to make it better, and sometimes that could just be entertainment, right? But that could be education about something or inspiring them about something. Then if it's relevant to that human, then it's going to retain their attention. So an example of this is let's say there's a 30-minute video, right? Which is a workshop type video about, let's just say it's about video marketing, right? That's going to be something, chances are, if it's good content, that I'm going to sit down and I'm going to ravenously watch a 30-minute video. It's going to retain my attention because it's highly relevant to me as a video marketer, right? But if I showed that to my wife, who's a speech therapist, she would be bored out of her brain and she wouldn't want to watch longer than about 30 seconds, right? So because it's not relevant to her. Vice versa, if she watched a 30-minute video that was about her interests and her needs and desires, then that will retain her attention. So relevant to the human, also relevant to the context. Okay, so what I mean by the context is, where is that human when they're watching that video, when they're ideally watching that video? A good example of this is if I'm watching a video about how to change a tire, right? Chances are, if I don't know how to change a tire, I'm watching that video because I need to change a tire. And chances are I might be like sitting in my car on the side of the highway with a flat tire, right? So I don't want to watch a 30-minute video about how to change a tire when I'm in that situation. I want to get to the point. I want it to be very action orientated. I need that video in order to retain my attention, to give me the information I need quickly in a way that I can understand and action, right?
Real quick, I want to pause you there.
Yeah. Go ahead.
This is fascinating because if you do have a video specifically about how to do something, like I think about how to replace a light switch, for example, right? Because that's something I'm going to be doing. I'm going to put the kind that, you know, dimmers. I'm putting dimmers in a bunch of places. If I'm actually doing the action that's in the video while the video is going on, I don't care about the history of the dimmer. I don't care about a review of the dimmer. I don't even care about the person who's giving me the video. All I care about is, how do I not get electrocuted? Right? Exactly. And how do I replace the dimmer? Right. So in that situation, I think we have to put ourselves in the position of the person, right, who's actually going to be watching the video. And if it's a how-to video, they might be pausing it constantly, right? And they might be doing other kinds of things. And that might be very different than, you know, I don't know. I mean, but in some cases, maybe it would work if it's a slow, methodical process where you might have a chance to tell some stories in the middle of the video, right? To kind of retain people along. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, potentially you might. And that's exactly the kind of thinking that needs to go on in order to impact retention or getting people to continue watching your video, is really understanding the context that they're in when they're watching your video.
Right. Okay.
And it's exactly what you talked about. And, you know, back to that how to change a tire example, right? If, for example, it was a video which was which tire is best for off-roading, right? So it's still potentially from the same creator, you know, who's a tire shop, I don't know, I'm making this up, right? But if it's about which tire is best content or best for off-roading, then chances are that I'm going to be in a different context. Might be the same audience, but I'm in a different context now, and I'm sitting back because I'm doing some research about, you know, getting some new tires for my vehicle. And, you know, I've got more time to think about it. I probably might want to hear some stories or watch a few kind of adventures with this tire, for example.
I love that.
Yeah, different context, same audience, but different context means you need to retain them differently. And then we also need to recognize relevance to the platform as well. So, and this is where we're getting into more tactical stuff, and we won't go deep into every platform, but some examples here is, in order to retain viewers on YouTube, you're going to use different tactics and strategies than you would to retain viewers on TikTok, for example, particularly because of the way that people are expecting to engage with content on those platforms. So, you know, you can use different strategies like pattern interrupts, and we talked about some of those before, where you can, you know, put in some, you know, cut scenes or transitions, or you can use some of the tools that things like TikTok provide, you know, like green screen and things like that, or you can switch it up between different types of production within the video in order to keep people watching for longer. There's a whole bunch of different tactics you can apply here, but it's going to be sometimes different depending on the platform and what the platform expects, right? And then we also need to be relevant to where they are in the customer funnel. We talked about that right at the top of the episode, that at different stages of that customer journey, your audience is going to want different things from you, and they're potentially going to be retained in your videos differently. So a good example of this is at the top of funnel, where the goal for your videos are probably just awareness, getting people to become aware of your business. And, you know, mostly that sort of content needs to connect on an emotional level with your audience. Then chances are, because they're like cold audiences that may not know you very well, then they're not going to retain very long by default. So you keep your videos short at that top of funnel in order to retain your viewers longer. But conversely, at the bottom of the funnel, when I'm about to part with my cash or spend $2,000 on an online course or buy a thing, then chances are I'm going to watch a longer video. My retention is going to naturally be longer when I'm closer to making a purchase decision. So the way that you retain people and the levels of retention you can expect from people are going to differ based on where they are in the funnel. Does that make sense?
Totally. So what's the next part of your process?
So the third step when you're thinking about optimizing your videos for humans is the action that you want them to take. So remember, the goal here is to drive business results. So if we're not thinking about how are we best optimizing this video in order for that result to take place or for the person to move towards that action, then potentially the video is great, but it's not going to drive the action that we want it to. So when you think about the action element when it comes to optimization, it's really about being clear on what do you actually want people to feel, think, or do after watching this video. Okay, feel, think, or do. And those things are very different, because if your goal for your video is just you want someone to feel differently about an idea or a concept, or you want them to feel, you know, to have a laugh or to be entertained, then chances are your next action is going to be quite different to if you want someone to actually do something, to take a physical action, go click through and do something on a website. So feel, think, or do. Be really clear on that, because that's then going to lead to how can you best optimize your video for that action. And some of the things that you want to consider here is whether or not it's a soft call to action, a soft action you want people to take, or a hard action. Okay, and the difference there is that a soft action might be more of those videos that are designed to get someone to feel something. It might be like a soft action, might be like leave a comment, or, you know, follow for more, or subscribe. That's a soft action. Okay, it requires minimal action from the person who's viewing. Whereas a hard action, a hard call to action could be doing something like visit this site, click on the button, buy my thing. That's a hard call to action. So some videos, you're going to want it to be a soft call to action. That's going to be more effective. And some videos, you're going to need it to be a hard action, because that is going to be more effective depending on what you're trying to optimize for. The other aspect here is what I refer to as direct versus indirect action. So direct action is those hard calls to action, which is like call now, buy now, right? The indirect action is more of a transitional action. So it might be still a hard call to action, but if it's a transitional hard call to action, it's more like learn more or download this guide. So it's like an opt-in or a freebie. That's more of a transitional call to action. It's a bit softer, a bit more indirect than buy now, right? You understand? So sometimes the way that you get this action into your videos when you're thinking about optimization comes down to the words you say towards the end of your video. So how you ask for the ask. Does that make sense? How you ask for the ask?
Yeah.
Okay. So how you ask for the ask, but then also the things that you put around your video. So whether there's a button underneath the video, or if you're running it as a paid ad on Meta, then what call to action button you use, or what text you use around the video in order to drive the action. Or, sometimes you're driving that action towards, a link in the comments, for example. So what words do you use in that situation? So you can apply this in different ways, but at the end of the day, the action needs to be considered in order to optimize the video for actually being effective in what you want it to do. Does that make sense?
It totally does. And my action to everyone listening is to continue to get a little bit more of Ben Amos. So Ben, I know we've just scratched the surface of all the great things that you teach. And first question is, if people want to connect with you on the socials, what's the preferred platform? I'm guessing YouTube, but it could be anything. And then where do you want to send them if they want to learn more about you or some of the other things you've got going on?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Ben Amos, Engage Video Marketing. LinkedIn's probably the place that I hang out the most these days as far as connecting on LinkedIn would be great. So come and find me over there and let me know that you heard me on the podcast. But I've actually put together a page as well at engagevideomarketing.com/SME, where I will have, well, first of all, I'll have a couple of free chapters of my forthcoming book, which you mentioned at the top there, people can download. I'll also have some other resources related to optimization here that we talked about here today. So you can go and grab that, and we'll connect further that way as well.
Did you say it was engagevideomarketing.com/SME? Is that correct?
You got it.
Ben Amos, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your insights with us.
Thanks, Mike. I love it.